Alright, so this video is going to be how to have an out-of-body experience, OBE, something that has become more and more popular these days. There's a lot more information on it in the last couple years than there ever has been. Here we go. I've had numerous out-of-body experiences, and I want to make it clear that I'm not talking about astral travel. I am not talking about remote viewing, although those things are partially involved with the out-of-body experience. I'm going to refrain from speaking about them in this video because they are not the same thing. I'm not talking about imagining that you've gone somewhere. I'm not talking about deep meditative experiences, although meditation and knowing how to do it is one of the key practice routines, you could say, to activating that state, meaning the out-of-body state. These days, I choose to believe somebody when they tell me that they've had one, and especially when they describe it and the information checks out. As I said, I've had several. That means more than 3. And every single time, the activation has been exactly the same. Just about exactly the same. There's different sounds you will hear, different sensations you will experience. The place that we're in will actually look and sound a different way than it does on a daily basis. So there's key traits of the out-of-body experience that I have noticed each time I've done it. As far as how far I've gone with it, I believe I've gone very far with it, but I'm only here to discuss the fully conscious and awake out-of-body experiences that I have been able to have this time around. I am certain as a fact that we are eternal beings. I am certain as a fact that reincarnation is real. I am certain as a fact that we never die. And I am certain as a fact that we have a lot more power than we're not only being told, but than most people believe we do. And that means over 99% of humanity. I hope this video actually gets a lot of views. I hope somehow, some way, I just get one shot in this life to get my life's work out there. On this channel, as a lot of you know who have been here for a while, the view count and everything that goes along with it is dropping off like crazy. And that's a really good sign that somebody is headed in the right direction. I do mostly discussions of inner work, interpersonal relationships, and overall confronting your own shadow. And the main theme of this channel is to be honest. And so I'm giving you and everyone else my word who's listening that I am being honest right now. I'm going to get right to the facts. I'm going to get right to what I experienced. And if you don't believe this is a real thing, then I have to default, unfortunately, to knowing that you have not done your research. And that would also mean that somebody is rejecting the other information that has come out within the last couple of years. Thanks to several other people, such as Darius J, Wright, who has helped a lot of people learn how to activate the out-of-body state. In fact, you could say that's been his life's work. I had spoken to him several times over the phone. He gave me a lot of his time, answered a lot of my questions. He did so more than once, and even invited me to his live seminars, in which he did not charge me for any of the information. And I thought that to be a very, very kind thing to do for somebody else when you otherwise could have made money off of something that you had every right to charge for. To set up a class and PowerPoint presentations, and even to learn how to speak, to communicate information properly, and especially with the work that he does, and all the time and the energy and everything else that went into it, I thought that to be a very kind and generous thing to do for somebody that you had never even met in person. So that's my account of things, and that's how I learned how to activate it on my own consciously, because there's a difference between having an out-of-body experience while you're asleep, which sleep is a hypnotic state that we get put into every night, I would say against our will, where the eyes move back and forth. Look up REM, which stands for rapid eye movement. It's the same thing that happens with a hypnotist when you're being hypnotized. So this is something that I believe causes us to forget a lot of the out-of-body experiences that we've had. And so what Darius has taught is how to activate this state while fully awake, which is what I did. I'm not here to debate anything, really. This is simply just a presentation of information, and that's what's important right here and right now. Before you have an OBE, I have noticed for me, which is the only person I can speak for in this case, if you want somebody else's account and somebody else's techniques, please visit their channel or their website. I'm not here to name any more names. I'm only giving credit to the person, to the being who taught me and helped me take this a lot further, as well as myself for actually doing the work, because that's what it comes down to. I'd also like to say that one of the ways that I know that a lot of people aren't ready for the truth and don't want to know what's actually going on is they will frequently, from what I've seen, criticize people who have had OBEs and have given their very real and truthful accounts of what has taken place. They will also critique and criticize, which you have every right to critique information, but there's been a lot of criticism as far as OBE goes. And I've noticed that a lot of people just want to hang on to their beliefs, their religion, and even their jealousy and animosity towards others who have gone a lot further than they have to achieve this state, which takes a lot of work. It's all about being able to control the impulses of your body, to be able to control your own thoughts, to be able to center yourself, to focus, to relax even when you feel incoming anxiety, and to not let these impulses and anxious feelings, which are really just fear when you peel off all the labels and all the fronts, the underlying thing is fear, and that's exactly what prevents a being from accessing their true self, and even what prevents them from accessing the beyond. Fear itself. False evidence appearing real. It's a funny thing. It's a terrifying thing. It can be. I wish I could say, and perhaps in the future, if I'm still around and still able to speak about this type of thing without my channel getting terminated, hopefully that doesn't happen, but if I am still able to speak about this type of thing, then I hope to have more of them, and I hope to have more pleasant experiences. But each time I've come out, I have entered a different department of this experience. Everything is where it is, as normal, on any given day. But everything feels completely different. And things even look different. They sound different, they are different. And I'll get to that later in the video. So how does one activate this state to begin with. If I could take my best shot at it, and keep in mind this is just my personal advice, take from it what you will, what you desire, and feel free to get other information from other sources. In fact, I would highly recommend it. Do not just take my word for it. I can assure you that my word is accurate and true, and that I am not making any of this up. I am not exaggerating. It's straight and to the point. And frankly, it is what it is. But please, please check other sources of this information. Do as much research as you can. Be as safe and careful and cautious as you possibly can. And if you have any medical issues that could get in the middle of something like this, or cause any type of hindrance, even if you think there's the slightest chance, please consult with your doctor first. And with that, I shall continue. For me, it started with deep meditation, which involved laying perfectly still, or as still as I possibly could, for several hours straight. I had some sessions that went close to 4 hours. One of them, I believe, if I remember correctly, it went beyond 4 hours. And I got really, really close. And something about it, especially in the beginning, it was just difficult for me to get to that takeoff point. But I noticed my consciousness began to change. I began to see more. My imagination got more vivid. I was sort of phasing in and out of my daily conscious state, but not falling asleep. It was a state of deep and profound meditation. And each time I did this, I noticed even if I failed, which in a way there is no failure. It's either you do it or you don't. And every time there's been benefit, it's all been like practice. It's like saying that because you didn't achieve something right away in practice that you failed. It's not true. It was a practice session. So I would strongly advise looking at it that way. You know, just per my own suggestion, that every time, even if you spend 3 hours on it and you don't do it, you don't actually have an OBE. Don't look at it as a failure. Look at it as practice. Each time I was able to get a little further, and each time I learned something new about it. So how can that be a failure? And all of which led to me being able to do it, to achieve it. So I am here to say that meditation should not be underestimated. It just is not the end-all be-all. Being able to keep your body very, very still, even when it wants to move, even when your legs become restless or numb, which they will. They can and they probably will. Your throat may start to feel uncomfortable. Your breathing may start to feel a little bit weird. It will feel different. You might feel pins and needles across your body. And you might have itchiness or aches and pains that normally are not there. And at a certain point, this can become incessant, especially in the first hour. And the whole first hour seems to be ignoring all of these bodily needs, and you get better and better at it. So doing several practice sessions, going for at least an hour to start, is how I would recommend, even if it's a half an hour. Usually it takes around 2 to 3 hours, usually about 3 hours. But what I noticed this did is between thinking about OBE and actually practicing OBE, I was then able to have them later on. Because what would happen is I would be going to sleep, but not quite asleep. And then I realized that I got to this state of awareness before, I just didn't know what it was. And it's when you start hearing like a humming sound. Sometimes you'll see sort of like a flickering or a shimmering in the room. The energy changes. And then what would happen is I would start to feel this body become paralyzed, meaning my human flesh avatar. and start sinking into the bed. It would sort of start dropping off of me naturally. And I would feel another body underneath me that I wasn't aware of on a regular basis start to come unplugged from the human avatar, and it would start rising up while this body was slowly sinking into the bed. So the real me underneath got lighter, and the fake me, which is the daily me that I experience and see in the mirror, started to feel like it was becoming heavier and starting to actually like peel off of me. And this happened multiple different times, so I knew that it wasn't an accident and I wasn't imagining it. And what finally did it was either being close to the state of sleep, and I think that's because your brain enters a different frequency field that is conducive and also necessary for OBE in the first place. And so when I did it most of the time, I had just woken up from sleep and had experienced all the trigger signs, being fully awake once again and conscious in this daily body, and no longer dreaming or in the state of sleep, so no longer hypnotized by the state of sleep, to which case if you do have an OBE, most likely you're going to forget it entirely, which is why I think we've all had them multiple times, probably way more than we realize. I started to recognize that I was right at the gate. I have a little music playing in the background, and there's an ad that just came on. And I'm trying not to be distracted by it, so I hope the audio comes out okay in this video. Let me know if not. Actually, you know what? I got to keep the comments off, unfortunately, due to harassment and bullying. And I don't want to talk about that. I want to stay on target. So the way that I was able to trigger it was to what people call a spontaneous OBE, which there's really nothing spontaneous about it because it feels sort of assisted by your soul. Like your spirit knows it's time to go. And so something wakes you up. And now if you can focus and hold on to that state, especially if you've done many practice runs with OBE, and this is why I believe the practice runs in those deep, deep meditative states are actually entirely necessary. And even thinking about it on a regular basis every day and saying, I'm going to have one, I'm going to have one, and just knowing it are actually crucial to having one. And so if you focus and you sort of do like a tightrope walk between wakefulness and sleep, it's a difficult thing to do, but it can be done. You may start to notice that you get rumbling sounds and jet engine-like sounds, and you feel like you're about to take off. All I can say is that if you make it to this stage, you're very, very, very close. You're about 98 or 99% there, and you'll know. You'll know because you'll remember this and you'll feel exactly what I'm talking about. And from there, what you want to do is continue to focus and try to push out of your body. You actually use physical force to do it without moving this. It's a certain thing that happens. Your body has to be, from what I've noticed, in a state of paralysis. So this can you can wake up and people experience what's known as sleep paralysis, but I don't think a lot of people in the past who have had bad times with sleep paralysis have realized that that is their human avatar giving them the go-ahead to escape. It's like a golden opportunity that a lot of people, even myself way back in the day, I've been experiencing it for a long time now and I've had some very scary encounters with it. But I didn't realize that I could have pushed through and pushed myself and my way out of this body. And so that's the exact time that you really want to go for it and keep focusing. I've noticed that if you let even the slightest thing break your concentration, that's usually it. So every time I've come out, there's been this really high-pitched squealing sound. It sounds to me like the only way I can describe it is like two pieces of styrofoam quickly rubbing together. It's like a squeak. And it's got a very particular sort of sound to it that's been that same way every single time I've done it. And I mean every time I've done it. So you sort of slip out of this body, the human flesh avatar. And like it would be similar to having two pieces of styrofoam, like I said, rubbing together, squeaking together. And somebody having like a large microphone hooked up to it to amplify the sound, going right to a giant loudspeaker. It's very loud. And so you break through and you slip through this skin suit as if it's a wetsuit. And if you want an example of what I mean, go try on like some sort of a diver's wetsuit or something similar, a rubber suit, a spandex suit. It kind of feels like spandex. And imagine if you were able to push through that without damaging the material and just slip right out without unzipping it or anything like that, or having to take it off. You just walk right through it. So that's what it feels like when you exit the body, and that's how you'll know that you've done it. And then from there, it gets a little bit bizarre, because for the first few times you might be questioning if you actually did it, and then within a few seconds, from what I noticed, in my case, I was like, oh my God, I actually did it. You'll know that you did it, and you'll be able to see your body laying on the ground. And even I was able to walk on this daily body that I'm operating right now, walk on my legs and everything, and they felt the exact same size, exactly the way that they are. Everything, including my bed, was in its exact place. But I was having trouble navigating at first, because it was like I was on fast forward. I had like super speed. Flying was as easy as walking. You can move through objects. It's strange. It's like a duality and a paradox, where instead of like daily life, if you walk into a wall, you get hit by it and you get stopped. In the OBE state, if you try to walk through a wall, it's solid, but as soon as you intend to go right through it, you go right through it. And there's more stories to tell, but unfortunately I'm running out of time. I'm not here to talk about so much of what happened after I left, but rather how to help people learn how to do this themselves. And every time I've left, I will just say this, that time seems to come to a standstill. It doesn't operate the same way in that time dimension, which you feel like you've entered a different dimension of this experience, of this place. It's like all the sound is shut off. It's like a deafening silence. You feel like you've just walked into a video game that you've been playing for a long time, and now suddenly everything is on pause. It can be very eerie for a while. And it isn't until you return to your daily body that you realize how strange it was. I noticed each time that I didn't feel pain or fear in the out-of-body state, not like I do in this body. And even doing the practice sessions and laying still for several hours seemed to activate the light body that we all have underneath, which is entirely physical. It's an energetic body that does not have the same needs that the daily flesh suit does, or flesh avatar is what I'm referring to it as, so everybody hopefully understands what I mean. And even activating that underneath through meditation and going for OBE, even if it's just a simple practice session, seems to have massive benefits as far as memory reclamation, at least for me, and knowledge acquisition, as well as feelings of well-being and more mental clarity and enhanced ability in daily life. In fact, when I stopped doing it, that's when I started noticing a downward spiral back into my old way. So even practicing for OBE has numerous benefits from what I found. And but when you go for it and you come back, you might find that for at least a day or so, you're going to be very, very tired and out of it. But you don't necessarily feel bad. It's a big energy demand on the human flesh avatar to, it seems like, keep itself alive while you're out. And I think the reason there's a time limit on these experiences is because if you spend too much time out, there's no battery to power your human body. So I hope that makes sense. And, you know, were you to be out for a certain amount of time, you would actually experience physical death. There's many abilities that you will have and notice almost right away if you can think fast enough on your feet when you achieve OBE. Pretty much anything you think of, you can do. You may find that you look a lot different. In my case, each time my legs were a lot bigger. I noticed I was a lot faster, far less bodily pain, no depression, and I took my consciousness with me. I was fully me. I didn't merge with the all or anything weird or new agey like that. I was still fully an individual, and I just entered a different department of this experience. So things like super speed, teleportation, walking through walls, flying are all second nature and easy as pie. I hope this video was informative. Again, this is not to discuss all of my out-of-body travels. This is to simply guide people and throw something out there to people saying, hey, if you want this information, it's available. There's many other sources that you can look at. I would recommend Darius J. Wright on YouTube, or go to his website. I know from what he said, he doesn't do a lot of social media, but because he is the one who helped me learn how to achieve this, I'm giving him credit for that, to which case he deserves the credit for that. And please do as much research on this as possible, and don't just take my word for it. Think for yourself, think critically. If you decide to go for it, make sure you practice, make sure you utilize whatever safety or precautionary measures that you see fit. Don't let me think for you. Make up your own mind, arrive at your own conclusions, and I hope this video is informative. And with that, I bid all of you adieu, whatever the heck that means. Peace.